I never thought the people I loved the most would become my greatest source of pain. Growing up, I spent my life in the shadow of my younger sister, Lily. You know the type, the one who's effortlessly beautiful, radiant, and adored by everyone who crosses her path. Lily had that special something my parents couldn't resist. Her mere presence lit up rooms, drawing everyone's attention, leaving little space for anyone else, including me. My childhood memories were like scenes from a film, quietly painting the picture of our family's dynamics. I remember sitting at our old kitchen table, the wood worn smooth from countless dinners, watching Mom gently place a carefully sliced piece of cake in front of Lily, smiling proudly. Lily would glance at me, eyes sparkling, before eagerly digging in. I'd quietly wait for my own piece, always smaller, always second. My parents never intended harm, at least that's what I believed. They simply saw Lily as the star, destined for greatness, while I was labeled the dependable one, the invisible supporter. If Lily needed a new dress for her recitals, there was always money. But when I asked about piano lessons, Mom would sigh. Maybe next year, Sarah, you understand, right? And somehow, I always did understand. After high school, I took a steady job at a local food processing plant, supporting my family financially. It became second nature, like breathing. Each month, I diligently sent money home, believing that was how love worked. Quiet sacrifices, unspoken acts of care. One afternoon, my phone buzzed insistently, vibrating harshly against the countertop. I glanced at the screen. Mom. My heart warmed. Maybe they'd finally recognize my efforts, my loyalty. But as soon as I picked up, her voice pierced the calm. Sarah, she snapped sharply, irritation evident. What do you think you're doing? Lily sends us $112,000 every month. And you, 880, are you mocking us? I felt the floor beneath me vanish. Mom, what are you talking about? I've always sent exactly that amount. $112,000, not 880. She scoffed bitterly. Don't lie to us, Sarah. Lily's a successful model. You're just you. You never cared about this family as much as your sister. The call ended abruptly, leaving me gripping my phone, heart pounding, confusion swirling like a storm inside me. That night, sleep evaded me. Staring at my bedroom ceiling, shadows dancing from passing headlights, I felt deeply unsettled. For the first time, I began questioning everything I'd accepted as normal. Had they always felt this way? Had I spent my life giving to people who saw me as nothing more than a disappointment? Something deep within me shifted that night, a quiet, simmering feeling I couldn't ignore. I realized I'd been living in a world carefully crafted by others, accepting breadcrumbs of love, believing they were feasts. The pain was raw, sharp, but with it came clarity. If I wanted my life to change, I had to confront the truth I'd avoided for too long. I had to step out from Lily's shadow, reclaim my identity, and learn what it meant to truly value myself. The journey wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I felt ready. The realization didn't come all at once. It crept into my consciousness slowly, piece by painful piece. Each memory surfaced gently, yet sharply, like glass fragments embedded beneath the skin. One evening, I sat in my tiny apartment, dimly lit by the soft glow of a flickering lamp, sorting through old photos I'd stashed away in a worn cardboard box. There, hidden among faded Polaroids, I found a picture of Lily's 12th birthday. She stood radiant in a new pink dress, my parents beaming beside her, their hands resting proudly on her shoulders. I stood slightly apart, awkward and unsure, forcing a weak smile to mask the sting of exclusion. Even at 15, I'd understood my place. Suddenly, a forgotten memory surfaced vividly. Lily had begged for her own room, claiming her growing collection of clothes and makeup needed space. My parents quickly agreed, moving me into the cramped living room where I'd sleep on an old sofa, surrounded by stacks of boxes and discarded furniture. They told me it was temporary, but temporary stretched into years. The injustice I'd accepted so willingly now gnawed at my heart. I'd been taught to value myself by how much I could endure silently, never realizing that love wasn't meant to be earned through sacrifice and self-denial. My mind drifted to another memory, still fresh despite the passage of time. The day I approached my parents, my heart pounding with excitement and nervousness about attending university. University? My father frowned, lines of doubt creasing his forehead. Sarah, let's be realistic. We don't have money for that. Think about Lily. She has real potential, you understand, right? Of course, I whispered back then, smiling faintly as the disappointment settled deep into my bones. But sitting alone now, surrounded by these echoes of my past, Anger began simmering beneath the sadness. For the first time, I saw clearly what I'd allowed myself to become, a silent observer of my own life, always second, always invisible. That anger didn't burn fiercely. It glowed softly, steadily, a quiet determination building within. I couldn't rewrite my past, but maybe, just maybe, I could change my future. I picked up my phone, fingers trembling as I dialed a familiar number. Mia, my closest friend from high school, answered on the second ring, her voice warm and comforting. "Sarah, it's been ages. Is everything okay?" I paused, emotions catching in my throat. "Actually, Mia, I'm not sure anymore. Can we meet? I think I need your advice." Her gentle agreement steadied my nerves, and as I ended the call, I felt a hint of hope, like sunlight peeking through storm clouds. Maybe this was what I'd needed all along, someone to help me see the truth. Someone who could remind me that my worth wasn't determined by sacrifices or approval. And with Mia's help, perhaps I'd finally find the courage to reclaim my voice, set new boundaries, and rewrite the story I'd accepted for far too long. After my call with Mia, I made a decision I'd never imagined making. I withheld the monthly money transfer for the first time in years. My thumb hovered anxiously over the screen, and when I finally tapped cancel, it felt as though I had pressed pause on the life I'd known. My heart raced, my breath quickened, yet something about that action felt profoundly right. The following days stretched long and heavy, filled with an eerie silence that crept into every corner of my small apartment. The ticking clock in my kitchen seemed louder, each second echoing the uncertainty I felt inside. My phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from home that I deliberately ignored, each vibration fueling my growing anxiety. Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I forced myself to remain firm, convincing myself it was necessary, that boundaries had to be drawn. Late one Friday evening, as I prepared for bed, my phone vibrated sharply, illuminating the dim room with Lily's name. Hesitantly, I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Hello?" Her reply came swiftly, filled with an uncharacteristic blend of panic and anger. "Sarah, what are you thinking? Why did you suddenly stop sending money? You know how tough things are right now." I paused, feeling a mix of anger and hurt bubbling beneath my carefully composed surface. My voice shook slightly, but my resolve was clear. "Lily, do you realize how much I've actually been sending home? Mom and Dad seem convinced I'm contributing almost nothing." There was a long silence, awkward and charged. Lily's voice returned, softer, hesitant. I I didn't exactly clarify things. Mom and Dad assumed the bigger amounts were from me. I let them believe it. Her words hit me like cold water, chilling me to the bone. I felt as though I'd been plunged into icy darkness, finally seeing clearly how deeply rooted the betrayal was. "How long have you known this, Lily?" I whispered, fighting back tears. "Sarah, please, she stammered, her voice filled with guilt and something else. Fear. "Don't," I interrupted gently yet firmly. "I don't need excuses, Lily. I need honesty." The call ended abruptly, leaving me in silence, overwhelmed by a complex swirl of anger, grief, and betrayal. It wasn't just my parents' misunderstanding that hurt. It was Lily's deliberate silence, her willingness to let me carry the weight alone. I sat still in my bed, the pale moonlight casting elongated shadows on the wall, playing out old scenes I'd buried deep inside. Mom's subtle dismissals, Dad's cold indifference, Lily's innocent smiles hiding a deeper truth. The room felt suddenly smaller, as if all those unspoken emotions had come crashing down at once, suffocating me. Yet, amid the pain, something else stirred, a quiet, powerful sense of liberation. Looking out the window at passing cars, each moving decisively toward their own destinations, I knew clearly that I'd taken the first step toward my own path, separate from the expectations I'd silently accepted my entire life. For the first time, I understood that breaking this pattern wasn't betrayal, it was self-preservation. And as I lay there, watching headlights pass silently on the street below, I embraced the uncertainty of what lay ahead. The road before me was uncharted, but finally, it was entirely mine. The days following Lily's phone call felt surreal. My apartment, once a haven of peace, had become a space filled with unanswered questions and sleepless nights. Each evening I'd return home from work, half expecting angry messages, missed calls, or accusations waiting impatiently on my phone screen. And every time the screen lit up, my heartbeat quickened, anxiety tangling sharply in my chest. It was early evening, a week later, when the call I dreaded finally arrived. This time it wasn't Lily. My mother's name glowed ominously. Her insistence felt even through the vibration of the phone. I took a deep breath, mentally preparing myself for the conversation ahead. Sarah, what's gotten into you? Her voice, typically calm and collected, now carried an unfamiliar urgency, wrapped tightly in anger. Your father and I have worked so hard, and now you abandon us when we need you the most? Her words stung more than I anticipated. My fingers clenched around the edge of my kitchen counter, knuckles whitening. But this time, I didn't retreat into apologies or excuses. Instead, I spoke steadily, holding firm. Mom, I've always supported you. Always. Have you ever considered how hard it's been for me? My voice trembled but held its ground. She scoffed bitterly. Sarah, this isn't about you. Lily has worked tirelessly to help us, and now, because of your selfishness, she's struggling. Something snapped inside me, a sudden flare of anger pushing past years of silence. Are you kidding? Lily? The one you always favored, whose mistakes you've endlessly excused? Did you ever stop to think what this has cost me? Not just financially, but emotionally, personally? A tense pause stretched between us. I heard her breathing become uneven, her voice shaky when she finally replied, barely masking her indignation. Sarah, you're misunderstanding everything. We gave you responsibility because we trusted you could handle it. I laughed bitterly, unable to hold back the disbelief. You mean you expected me to shoulder everything quietly because that's what I've always done, right? Lily gets the applause, and I get the blame when things fall apart. Her voice hardened, sharp and cold. You're being dramatic. Families help each other without conditions. We raised you better than this. I closed my eyes briefly, feeling a painful stab of guilt rising within me. But as quickly as it appeared, Mia's words echoed firmly in my mind. You deserve better, Sarah. Don't give in this time. No, I said firmly, voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Helping family doesn't mean sacrificing myself endlessly. Not anymore. She started to reply, but I ended the call before her manipulations could continue, the screen fading to black. Silence flooded the room once more, but this time it felt different. Not oppressive, but cleansing. I'd finally voiced truths I'd kept buried for far too long. Later that night, Mia knocked gently at my apartment door, holding a bottle of wine and wearing a reassuring smile. We sat together on my worn sofa, sipping quietly at our glasses, the soft hum of traffic drifting through the open window. Mia listened patiently as I poured out the tangled emotions, nodding thoughtfully. You know, Sarah, Mia finally spoke gently, placing a comforting hand on mine. Sometimes standing up for yourself means disappointing the people who've gotten used to your silence. I sighed deeply, the weight of the evening settling over me. I never thought setting boundaries could feel so painful. Mia offered a quiet smile, her voice gentle but firm. It's painful because it's real. You're finally showing them and yourself what you deserve. We sat together silently, the comforting stillness wrapping around us. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel alone in my battle. Mia's quiet presence was proof I wasn't isolated, that genuine family didn't demand sacrifice without question. As the night wore on, I felt an unfamiliar yet empowering calmness within. The road ahead was uncertain, the battle's far from over, but now, with clarity and Mia's unwavering support, I felt ready. I was no longer just fighting for financial freedom or even emotional relief. I was fighting to reclaim myself. In the weeks following my confrontation with my mother, life settled into a new, uncertain rhythm. Each day was a careful balancing act between the fresh strength I'd discovered and the lingering guilt that whispered quietly in the back of my mind. I'd never been comfortable with conflict, especially when family was involved, but this was a war within myself that I had to win. One chilly Saturday morning, I received an unexpected message. My father's name lit up my phone, a rare occurrence. He'd always preferred silent disapproval over direct confrontation, making this sudden outreach all the more unsettling. Sarah, we need to talk. Meet me at the cafe near your office at noon. Anxiety tightened in my stomach, but I agreed, knowing this conversation was inevitable. Arriving at the cafe, I saw him immediately, seated at a corner table, his eyes fixed intently on a coffee mug as if searching for answers within it. His posture was rigid, tense, yet oddly vulnerable. My heart twisted sharply as I approached. Dad? I greeted softly, cautiously. He glanced up, eyes briefly meeting mine before quickly looking away. He seemed older somehow, burdened, tired. He gestured toward the seat opposite him without speaking, his expression unreadable. I sat down slowly, the silence between us stretching painfully until he finally broke it. Sarah, his voice was low, almost hesitant. You've always been our responsible one, the steady hand we could rely on. I know we've leaned on you too much, but leaned on me? I interrupted, surprised by my own bravery. Dad, you never just leaned, you took, constantly, without ever considering how much it drained me. His eyes flickered downward, ashamed perhaps, or simply uncomfortable at my honesty. We didn't see it that way, he admitted quietly, bitterness edging into his voice. We thought, we thought you could handle it better than Lily. My hands trembled slightly beneath the table, but I held his gaze firmly. And that was the mistake. You assumed because I didn't complain, I wasn't hurting, but I am. Silence thickened around us. He shifted uncomfortably, eyes avoiding mine. Finally, he exhaled heavily, voice softer, almost pleading. Sarah, your mother and I made mistakes. Financial decisions, poor judgments. We need your help. Lily's career. It isn't what we pretended. She's struggling too. I felt a bitter laugh rise to my throat. So, you knew Lily wasn't sending the money? His eyes fell to the table, shame creeping into his voice. Yes, but it was easier believing otherwise. Easier than facing reality. The honesty in his admission shook me deeply. For the first time, I saw him not just as my father, but as a flawed human being who'd made mistakes and was now struggling with their consequences. But why me, Dad? I whispered, fighting the lump rising in my throat. Why was it always me paying the price? He looked away again, staring at the table. Because we thought you'd always forgive us. We took your strength for granted, thinking it would never run out. My throat tightened painfully, yet something in me softened slightly. The anger didn't vanish, but now it was tempered with understanding, with a quiet sadness for the life we'd all unknowingly shaped together. Before leaving, he spoke again, this time barely above a whisper. Sarah, whatever you decide, just know, I'm sorry. Truly. As I stepped outside into the brisk air, tears blurred my vision. The apology didn't erase years of pain, but it had cracked open something vital. The illusion of my family's perfection, the fragile image we'd all desperately protected. Walking slowly back to my apartment, the world around me blurred, thoughts swirling chaotically. Every careful step forward had been painful, yet this raw honesty felt like a significant breakthrough, both for me and for him. That night, I sat by my window, watching the city lights flicker gently, feeling oddly peaceful despite everything. I didn't know yet what forgiveness looked like, or if it was even possible, but for the first time it felt like healing might be within reach. Perhaps real change began not with grand gestures or dramatic confrontations, but in quiet, honest moments like these when you finally face the truth no matter how uncomfortable. As I turned off the lights, lying down to sleep, I realized that this painful conversation had been necessary, not just to confront my father, but to confront myself, to acknowledge my pain openly without shame or hesitation. And that, more than anything else, gave me the strength to continue forward on this uncertain yet liberating journey. One late evening, just as I was finishing the dishes in my small apartment kitchen, my phone buzzed sharply. Lily's name flashed urgently across the screen. When I answered, her voice was strained, shaky with desperation. Sarah, please come home. Mom and Dad, they're in big trouble. My heart thudded painfully. 1,000 questions crowded my mind, but before I could ask, Lily hung up, leaving a chilling silence. Grabbing my keys, I drove through dark, rain-slick streets, each blurred streetlight amplifying my anxiety. Raindrops splattered heavily against my windshield, mirroring the dread pooling in my stomach. Arriving at my childhood home, the scene stunned me. Chaos filled every corner. Unopened letters piled high, unpaid bills littering the table, furniture overturned in panic. My parents sat hunched on the worn-out sofa, expressions hollow, eyes clouded with fear. Lily stood near them, biting her nails nervously. What's going on? I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady. My mother looked up, tears streaming silently. We're about to lose the house, Sarah. The debts, they're impossible. We don't have any money left. My father nodded quietly, refusing to meet my gaze, shoulders slumped in defeat. I turned sharply toward Lily, my voice trembling with barely concealed anger. Lily, what about all the money from your modeling? Those huge payments you claimed were yours? She looked away, avoiding eye contact. I lied. I don't earn nearly as much as I told everyone. The money was yours. I just never corrected their mistake. Shock surged through me. quickly replaced by a bitter wave of realization. They'd known, or at least suspected, all along. They'd willingly accepted my sacrifice, comfortably spending every dollar I'd sent while praising Lily for my efforts. Anger, hurt, and betrayal mixed painfully inside my chest. I turned to my father, voice trembling. "Where did all my money go?" He hesitated, shame coloring his face, finally admitting, "We overspent, maintaining our image, supporting Lily's career, paying off debts we kept hidden from you. We never intended things to spiral like this." An intense silence filled the room. The truth hung heavily in the air, suffocating us all. My chest tightened painfully. Anger flared within me, not just at them, but at myself for allowing this to happen, for sacrificing endlessly without ever questioning their intentions. "Sarah, you'll fix this, right?" Lily asked softly, desperation clear in her voice. I looked directly at her, then shifted my gaze slowly around the room. My heart ached seeing them broken, vulnerable, yet it also brought a painful clarity. I'd spent my entire life holding their burdens without question, believing it was love. But now I knew better. Drawing a deep breath, I spoke gently yet firmly. "I'm sorry, but this time I can't fix this. You all need to face the consequences and learn from them. I can't keep sacrificing myself to protect you from reality." Their faces fell, shock quickly turning into disbelief, then anger. But I didn't wait for their responses. I walked steadily toward the front door, my footsteps echoing sharply through the silence. Outside, heavy rain poured down, soaking me instantly. Yet the cold felt oddly comforting, washing away years of hidden resentment. Standing alone beneath the storm, I lifted my face to the sky, letting the rain cleanse away the weight of misplaced guilt and undeserved responsibility. For the first time, I was setting a boundary that no one, not even family, could cross. This was my first real step toward healing, and despite the uncertainty ahead, I felt stronger than ever before. Time passed differently after I finally set those firm boundaries with my family. The initial days were the hardest, filled with guilt, restless nights, and countless unanswered texts from my parents and Lily. Yet slowly, my apartment became more than just four walls. It transformed into a space of growth, a place to rebuild myself from the ground up. I threw myself fully into my professional training, spending evenings immersed in coursework, each lesson empowering me more than the last. The promotions soon came, first a team lead position, then department head, each step affirming that I was capable, valuable, and strong, independent from anyone's expectations. Yet despite my successes, loneliness lingered quietly in the shadows. I often found myself hesitating, unsure if I deserved joy or companionship after distancing myself from my family. It felt like betraying them, even though logic told me otherwise. But one afternoon, everything shifted. It was Mia's wedding day. The venue was breathtaking, a quiet garden overlooking the sea, sunlight casting gentle reflections on waves that danced softly below. Mia stood at the altar, radiant in her wedding gown, happiness glowing visibly around her. I watched silently from a distance, proud yet quietly aching. Watching her, I wondered if I'd ever experienced such genuine happiness myself. During the reception, Mia gently pulled me aside, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Sarah, there's someone I'd like you to meet," she whispered, nudging me toward a tall, gentle-eyed man who stood quietly by the veranda, gazing thoughtfully over the sea. "This is James," she introduced us softly, smiling knowingly before slipping away. James greeted me with warmth that felt unfamiliar yet comforting. We talked effortlessly, hours passing unnoticed as the party swirled quietly around us. He listened without judgment, sharing openly about his own life, his struggles, dreams, and lessons learned. His authenticity drew me in instantly. As we talked, laughter came easily, naturally, and with every passing moment, I felt walls inside me slowly crumble away. James never pushed or probed. He simply allowed space for me to breathe, to rediscover myself through gentle conversation and quiet companionship. Later, standing side by side at the railing, watching the sun sink slowly into the horizon, James turned toward me, his voice gentle yet sincere. "Sarah, I've learned life isn't about pleasing everyone around us. It's about finding who we truly are beneath the masks we've worn too long." His words resonated deeply, echoing inside me. I turned, meeting his eyes fully for the first time, and suddenly understood that what I'd lost with my family had made room for something far more meaningful. The evening breeze brushed softly against my cheek as I felt warmth spread through my chest. This wasn't just attraction, it was understanding. It was the beginning of something real, a chance to heal, to trust again. As we stood there, gazing out toward the endless ocean, I knew this was more than a fresh start. It was a rebirth, a chance to finally embrace my own worth, reclaim my happiness, and step confidently into a life defined solely by me. Life with James was like learning to walk again. Each step uncertain, sometimes stumbling, but always moving forward. We took things slowly, giving each other space to grow and heal. He understood that behind my laughter and calm facade was a heart still scarred, still learning to trust again. Yet even as love gently bloomed in my life, the question of my family lingered. Occasionally Lily or my parents would still reach out, their messages filled with subtle apologies or vague attempts to reconnect. Each message tugged painfully at the healing scars inside me, but I learned to hold firm, carefully protecting the boundaries I had built. One quiet Sunday afternoon, while James and I unpacked boxes in our newly rented apartment overlooking a small city park, my phone lit up unexpectedly. It was Lily. Hesitating briefly, I glanced at James, whose quiet nod gave me courage. I pressed accept, holding my breath. Sarah? Lily's voice was softer, less confident than I'd ever heard before. Yes? My voice remained neutral, guarded yet calm. There was a pause before Lily spoke, her tone filled with genuine vulnerability for the first time in years. I'm sorry, really sorry. I never realized how much I was hurting you, how unfair it was to you all those years. I've started working at a small cafe now. It's hard, but I'm learning. Her admission caught me off guard. My heart tightened painfully, part compassion, part suspicion. Why tell me this now, Lily? Because I finally understand, Lily admitted quietly. Mom and Dad, they haven't changed, Sarah. They're still blaming everyone but themselves. But I don't want to live that way anymore. I wanted you to know that I finally see you, and all you've done. Tears stung my eyes as I listened, emotions tangled tightly in my chest. Forgiveness didn't come easily. The wounds she'd left were still fresh enough to ache. Yet I felt a strange relief hearing her acknowledgement. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was an opening, a possibility. Thank you, Lily, I replied softly. I can't promise everything will go back to normal, but hearing you say this, it matters. After the call ended, James gently placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. You okay? He asked softly, his presence reassuring, grounding. I nodded slowly, a small smile forming. I think so. It's not perfect, but maybe that's all right. Maybe healing doesn't have to be perfect. Months turned into a year, and gradually my life blossomed into something beautiful, though imperfect. My relationship with my family remained cautiously distant, marked by polite yet careful conversations. Boundaries stayed firm, but occasional dinners and short visits allowed cautious steps toward reconciliation. Lily had genuinely changed, slowly rebuilding her life independently, working hard, growing humbler each day. My parents, too, had softened, finally accepting the consequences of their actions, though trust between us remained fragile. One cool autumn evening, standing beside James at the edge of the park, leaves dancing gently in the wind, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The world around us wasn't perfect, and neither were we. But in that imperfection, I'd discovered authenticity, the courage to honor my boundaries, the strength to forgive without forgetting, and the wisdom to accept that some relationships may never fully heal, yet that's okay too. James gently squeezed my hand, smiling warmly. You seem lost in thought, he murmured softly, eyes filled with quiet understanding. I looked up at him, meeting his gaze fully, just realizing something important, that it's okay not to have all the answers, that healing is an ongoing journey, not a destination. He smiled softly, nodding, and you never have to walk it alone. As we watched the sunset gently paint the sky in warm hues, I knew clearly that life wouldn't suddenly become simple or flawless, but it was real. I had learned the hard way that true strength wasn't found in silence or endless sacrifice. It was found in courageously setting boundaries, in knowing my worth, and finally believing I deserved a life filled with respect, kindness, and genuine love. My story didn't have a fairy tale ending neatly tied up in ribbons of perfection, but standing there in James's comforting embrace, feeling the wind brush softly against my face, I understood that real happiness wasn't about perfection. It was about choosing to heal, choosing to set boundaries, and choosing myself again and again every single day.